Good evening and happy Sabbath, everybody. We will start off our Vespers / mission trip report with some songs momentarily. No, we don't. Wait.
Our first song will be the Spirit Song.
It has a tab. Page 89. I don't know what page it has a tab. He's doing an intro. What a Friend We Have in Jesus. Page 59.
All our sins and griefs to bear.
opening song is Showers of Blessings. Please stand. 48.
We'll start with a word of prayer by Josh R.
Dear Jesus, thank you for this day. Thank you for our experiences and that we can share them tonight. And please bless the message by the speaker. In your name, amen.
Good evening and happy Sabbath. So glad that we can all be here this evening. This evening is a report on the Saipan mission trip. And I just want to take an opportunity from the clinic to thank Tina Heinrich. I know she's here. There she is. She's hiding. She's the fearless leader of this endeavor. So thank you so much, Tina. We really appreciate that. All you do and hours you put in, and day and night, actually, literally. And I want to thank all the parents. I know each one of you has sacrificed to send your children to Saipan and be part of this wonderful mission trip. And then we also want to thank some of the key people. So Dr. and Mrs. O, thank you so much for your hard work. Ken, Lee, thank you so much for yours. Tina, my wife. Of course, Dora, she's not here, but Patrice is representing her. They took care of the kitchen duties. And I know Dennis, where's Dennis? Dennis is in the back. Thank you so much, Dennis, for all you did. And the Miyagis, they're off island, but thank you so much, the Miyagis. I'm sure they'll be watching us later. Did I miss anyone else? The Kinyatas, thank you for them as well. She helped out so much in the kitchen and with support. And then Pastor Mar, of course, thank you so much. And his wife. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you an overview of the trip, and So a key part of a trip, I would say, is actually to have the local church and the pastor's support. So actually, I would say the birth of this trip actually started back in September. I did a site visit to Tinian and to Saipan to meet with the pastors there and to see if we could bring teams out to these islands. And the pastors, Paulo and Pastor Lauren, were actually very supportive of the idea of a youth trip, bringing a larger team out to bring out to somewhere in the CNMI. And actually had changed islands based on logistics. So, but that was a key part of our trip. So this is actually at the end of our trip where we get everyone together at the airport. So we had 29 people on our trip, and including 18 youth and children as well. And so we arrived in Saipan, and if you can go next slide. A back one. So we arrived in Saipan, and kind of closer to the middle of the island is where basically where we stayed. And if you can see on the far side, it said Cockman. And that's actually where we did a majority of some of our work there. So our trip comprised of 3 parts. One was our medical outreach. We did home visits in Cogman. So Dr. Miyagi, Dr. O, and I, we would take some of the youth with us, and we would go door to door. And so some of the kids youth will explain more about that. And then we also did projects at the Saipan SDA school, and the youth will also explain on that. And then our evening programs were also held in Cogman. That was the church plant we were at. And that comprised of VBS, followed by our evening evangelistic program as well. So that's just an overview of the trip. And I also want to, like Dr. Robinson, I just want to also thank all the youth and the parents and everyone that joined us on the trip. But it's definitely, every person was very important on this trip, and we were able to really see that. So the next one that's coming up is Mina. She's going to be explaining the history of Saipan and also the sites.
So, a highlight during our trip was taking time to see some historical and natural sites in Saipan. So, this is a map. This is a map. Okay, one of the first places that we went in Garapan, which is Saipan's capital, is the American Park. It's a special place where soldiers from World War II are commemorated for their sacrifice, the Japanese and the Americans. This is more backwards. Oh. Okay, so more on that same trip. A place to learn about the World War II history. Okay.
This is the Okinawa Peace Memorial, and it was a neat thing to see, and just remember that all the World War II history that happened there. There were Japanese there at World War II. A lot of you are aware of that here in Guam. It happened in Rota and also in Saipan. And so in the north of Saipan, there are several sites where they have memorials or special places that you can see. And there were also some wonderful and beautiful natural sites. So we're going to continue the sightseeing and just look at a few more sites. There were some great overlooks there in the north. There were, you can see the ocean there. Saipan is smaller than Guam, and it has some beautiful beaches on this side. That's Pao Pao Beach. And go on to the next one. There is a Bird Island lookout. If you've been to Saipan, you've probably seen that also. You can see this island behind them. It was raining. If you see that their hair is wet, that didn't stop anybody from getting out of the car and enjoying. Okay. some other sites, a lot of war and history sites. There's the grotto. Many of you may have seen that as well. It's a neat place to swim there. And then the last command post, that's something else in the north. And then going up a bit in the north, after one of the hotels is Pal Pal Beach Park. It's a beautiful, beautiful park where people were snorkeling. The kids enjoyed that together. And this is actually at the end of the week, but we just wanted to kind of set the tone for what Saipan looked like and some of the things that happened there. And we appreciate that the adults took us out there and took out some time from the mission trip to do that. And so my husband now is going to introduce one of our special speakers tonight. Actually, all of them are very special, actually especially the youth, because they're willing to be brave to come up here and speak to you. But we have a very special guest that is I'm excited about this because being in Saipan and being on this trip, having him here is very special. We were at the Cagman Church doing ministry, and this pastor is here tonight to give you'll want to hear more from him, but he's going to give you a brief history and story about the Cagman Church. And I'm going to go back, if Mina can go back to the map, she'll just have to go backwards. We're going to show you Cagman, because it's listed on this map very well. This pastor spent 3 years there. I'm going to let my husband introduce him, and then he's going to come up here and go through some slides in his story as well.
Thank you, Mina and Tina. All right, we have the opportunity to introduce Chris Achenberger. He arrived in Saipan in 2015. Prior to going to Saipan, he was training at Emmanuel Institute of Evangelism in Michigan Conference, where he served there as a Bible worker. Then went on to serve as an evangelist in the Upper Columbia Conference with ASI in Spokane. He met a GMM president at that time and was recommended to go to Saipan. Chris answered the call and conducted Bible work in Cagman. He pastored the church for 3 years. During that time, the Cagman Church met under a tent. Then after a year and a half, there was a groundbreaking ceremony for a permanent church building, and a new church was erected. And I'll let him tell the rest of the story. Welcome, Chris. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. So a little bit of why the Cagman Church. If you look at the map, Central Church and what was San Antonio Church are both on the west side of the island. And centrally, you have Mount Tapachow. And now Cagman is a rural area where there's homesteads and farm fields, but very, very excellently, a lot of the islanders came in contact with our church through Joy FM. If any of you know Pastor Juanes, he lived in Cagman, Joy FM. Brother Jonah Fred, Brother Bernard Charlie, Sister Atrini, all these people who lived on the other side of the island who would have to go over the mountain to get to our church. When I first got there, the leadership had a burden to put a church there and reach them. And soon after I got there, I found out that I would be assigned there. I don't know if you can. Oh, it's here, I got it. Oh, man. There we are, that's me. And the purpose of the picture was not to see my face, but to see the church behind it. That's the only picture I had of Cagman Church. When I first got there, they told me that the church had purchased some property, and they told me to travel to Cagman and meet up with Jonah Fred, that man there, and find the property. If you meet Jonah, he's a giant of a man. If you shake his hand, it's like shaking hands with a grizzly bear. He's from Nakuru. He was a seaman for many years, and eventually he worked for the power plant there in Saipan. And after he retired, he just went home, and he didn't know what to do with himself, and he started listening to Joy FM, and he called into the station to find out more about the things he was learning. Pastor Juanes studied the Bible with him, and he was baptized. When I met Jonah, he was walking with 2 canes, and every time he stepped, his hands would tremble, and you could see that every step was painful for him. And the leadership, I don't know if I can click it. Oh, I ruined it. we'll go back. The leadership, I don't know if you can see these guys very well, but Elder Norton is there, Doctors Ken Pearson and Dr. Creed, and these two guys, Eric Mahine and Joel Lopez and Ray Aldon, these were the leaders who organized the work in Cagman. It was Elder Joel and Elder Eric who told me I would go live in Cagman, that I should find Jonah, and me and Jonah should work together and clear the property. It was a jungle, and we were to take machetes and cut down all the trees. Now, you saw the room where the bathroom was in Cagman. There were so many trees that you couldn't see that building. It took a month to cut down all the trees and dig up all the roots. But I get down there, and they tell me that Jonah is going to be my wingman. We're going to cut down this jungle together. And when I see him, I see his health, and I say, you know what, Jonah? I'll see you in the morning, but you bring your ukulele. I'll work cutting down the jungle, and you'll play the ukulele, and we'll have a blessing. And he got angry, and he's like, no, Brother Chris, I prayed for this church. My dream has been that this church would be here, and I will build God's church. And I'm like, all right, Jonah, you bring your ukulele, and I'll see you in the morning. And when I got there in the morning, Jonah was already there. He had a big brush fire going, and he had a cane in one hand and a machete in the other, and he's chopping down the jungle with one arm. And he had a sponge stuck to his forehead, held on with a big rubber band. And the sweat was just pouring off him. And I'm like, oh no, this old man is going to die. He's going to die. And we worked and worked. And after the whole church would come down on the weekends, and we all worked together, cutting down the forest before we could set up for the tent meetings. I don't know if you can, we'll go back one. This is the picture of the original tent where we had tent meetings. And this, after a month, the government required us to take that large tent down, and we met in this smaller tent for a few months before we started building the church building. But day after day, Jonah worked, and when the workers came down to build the building, they saw Jonah's condition, and they said, you know, Jonah, we appreciate your efforts so far, but we want you to take a break. You know, you're working too hard, and you're an old man, and you need to call it quits. And Jonah wouldn't have it. He's like, you know what? I'm going to build God's church. And I left and started going door to door in the village. And Jonah continued to work on the building project. And in order to take part in the building of the building, Jonah crawled on his hands and knees, dragging hollow blocks, dragging buckets of concrete. When I got there to check on them, I saw him drag a hollow block up against the wall, and then kneel next to the wall, and then push the hollow block up to the workers on top of the wall. And I looked at his knees, and they were bloody, and I'm like, you know what, this isn't good. But something happened, something really special. Jonah went from crawling to limping to walking. After he worked day after day, his strength returned to him, and he was able to walk again like a young man. I'll never forget seeing him walk into church. And people from Nakuru, they call everything below their knee their foot. So when people saw him walking, they would say, Jonah, where are your sticks? And he would say, God healed my feet so I could build his church. And it gets better. Jonah kept on walking. He walked with me door to door. This is just a few of them. He walked door to door with me to meet people. Can't really see these pictures, but these men joined our church. That's Bernard Charlie, that's June, that's Brother Mike and his son. These are Jonah's friends. And when these men saw, and there were others, the St. Nicholas family, Papa Joe, if I can't say them all, I'll miss them. But when they saw the miracle of Jonah's walking, and he would say, God healed me so I could build his church. Come worship with us. They came. They came. And the meetings that I was a part of in Cagman were the best and highest experience of my entire life. I'd never felt so close to God. I've been part of meetings all over the world, and the meetings in Cagman were the best. They were the best thing I've ever done in my whole life. I don't know what else I could say. I'm grateful to be here tonight and see that there's people from Ordot Church writing the next chapter in God's work in Cagman. Thank you.
It's inspiring and a blessing that we got to have the privilege of being there in Cagman at that very church. And I'm thankful that Chris was able to share. I'm going to invite Trevane to come up here with me. I am just going to share with you a little bit about what we did on the first day, because the first day was Monday. It was April the 3rd. And we were just preparing for really what was going to be our regular routine every day. So we're just going to go over a couple of the slides, and Trevane has a special portion that he's going to share also. This is backwards. Okay. Well, we left Guam for Saipan on Monday morning, and it was an early morning flight, and nobody missed the flight. That was the best thing of that day. And so here are some of the faces that morning. Everybody was excited, happy, and we were only going 45 minutes, which is a very short flight when you've flown all the way from the mainland to here. Here we are in United Airlines, and it was so beautiful looking out the window and looking at the islands as well, coming here. And then we arrived in Saipan, and Pastor Restaro there is on that side. He's on that would be your left side. He was there, and we were excited to start our trip. We got some rental cars, so different ones of us, of the parents, we were taking the kids back to the school. And so here is the school. It's a very nice facility. I thought it was a great place for everybody to stay because it had, we'll show you some more pictures, but it just was a neat place for the kids to hang out. There was lots of benches. There were ping pong tables, and they had lots of bathrooms. They had created some showers. And the weather was difficult the first day. It rained a lot. I think the devil was trying to discourage us. But many days that week, it was wonderful and beautiful. It was very nice. Okay, Trevane is going to share. He's going to share now about friends and fellowship.
So my name is Trevane, and tonight I'm going to be talking about fellowship and friendship. Because the time we spent together hanging out during our meals, playing ping pong, playing the uke for the song service, the puppet show, Dr. O and Mr. Tekele being upset at us for being too loud in the middle of the night. Yeah. It really helped me bond with the youth that was on the mission trip. And I liked working with Mr. Travis and Mr. Ken Lee. They're good mentors. Yeah. I'm glad that I could be on this mission trip. It's a lot of fun working together to spread the good news. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Another thing that happened that afternoon, and you can see people had their raincoats on, was that we went out to Cagman. And so the kids went out, they prayed. We'll have some more stories about dogs later, but anyway, they prayed and passed out the flyers because it was that very night that we would start the meetings with VBS and also evangelism. So here they are. You see Mr. Jonah there in the red polo shirt. And there were several groups that were going out to pass out the flyers. And then what we did is we set up for VBS. Gina O worked with the kids at GAA because she works out there, and they had worked on the crafts. They had worked on, this black thing here is a special puppet theater. That was very special. We had bought some decorations, and you know what? We just ordered them, and I didn't know how that was going to work, but anyway, God is always interested in every detail because that worked out very well. It's an open-air church. Their power bill is super low, which is wonderful. And it was a great time. So we set up. We were excited. You see Pastor Mar down below. He's was going to be preparing for the outreach. So I just wanted to show you here, this was our daily routine, and this is where the kids are going to be speaking about pretty much each one of these sections. And so I'm going to ask Kai to prepare to come up here. So Tuesday through Friday, we had our regular schedule of cooking in the morning, and then they're going to narrate each of the sections of each day. So I'm going to ask Kai Lloyd to come up here because he was one of our helpers in the kitchen, which meant that he really had to sacrifice by waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he did that, and you know what? He liked working in the kitchen. So I'm going to let him talk.
Hello. Auntie Dora Desamore was assisted by Auntie Sonia Kanata and Auntie Tina Robinson. These three ladies made up the cooking team for our trip. Students were also assigned to help each day, even as early as 6 a.m., which is really early. Their responsibilities were to cook us 3 delicious meals per day and keep all the teenagers full so that we could work. They also went shopping for items so that we could eat, and it was good. Auntie Joy, Lynn, Lauren helped us sometimes too. What I liked about helping prepare meals was I could learn some new recipes and how to make them, which was fun.
Amen. He's going to be our next cook on the next mission trip. Just remember that, Tina. 6 a.m. Okay. Wyatt is now going to come up and share about one of our most important parts of the trip, morning devotions.
Hello, my name is Wyatt. So the most important thing we did before going to service each day and serving the Lord and serving the people in Kagman was our daily devotional. So in order to have a good time in the day and help serve the Lord is also to have your time with God first. I think that's really important. And each morning, a student would prepare a short message about service, and we'd all gather in a little circle and we'd sing songs, and it was just a powerful moment to start the day. And there's even one time where we managed to also go to the beach for our morning devotional, which was very nice. Starting the day off with God was great to keep our relationship with Him and also to prepare for the work we are about to do. So yeah, a great experience to start the day off.
Thank you, Wyatt. Okay, we have 4 young people now who are going to be up here to share about our medical outreach. So I'm going to call them up. We have Anthony, Abigail, Joshua, and Danilo. The first person that's going to be sharing is Anthony.
Okay, so tonight I'll be talking about the medical outreach that we did at Kagman. My name is Anthony, and I was a part of the medical crew on the mission trip in Saipan. One of the times I went out with Dr. Miyagi, Abigail, Dr. Miyagi, Abigail, and I met this woman named Margaret. She had been praying because she had a problem with her eyes, and she needed treatment. She applied for treatment in Saipan, but she was rejected, and they told her to go to Guam. As she was praying, we knocked on her door, and she said she was asking God for help and a sign. And we showed up, and we checked her blood pressure and sugar and prayed with her, and Dr. Miyagi gave her his contact information. Another time we went out, we met this woman who is friends with Margaret, and her name was Gloria. She said she goes on walks around in Kagman with Margaret, and she tries to eat healthy. Gloria told us about her neighbors, and after we checked her blood pressure and sugar, she took us to her neighbor, and the day we met him was the day of the 3rd year anniversary of his stroke. And we checked him and prayed with them all. And after going around that area, Gloria gave us some papaya turnovers, and she thanked us for our work. It was cool to have seen Margaret ask God to give her a sign, and then we came and told her about God and taught her about medical practices. Also, it was nice to receive the papaya turnovers.
An important part of any outreach is prayer. So we prayed before we started our medical outreach that day. We prayed for protection from dogs and that God would use us to touch people's hearts so we could reach them physically and spiritually. In my group were PA Tina Heinrich, Sam Jung, Dr. O, and myself. We went to a home where an elderly lady was caring for her brother. The lady came to the gate of the home, but could barely hear what we were saying because her dogs were so loud. When she finally was able to understand that we were offering medical attention, she was very happy to have us come to help for us to come to help her and her brother. She then tied up her dogs and invited us to come into the gate. One of the dogs, however, was tied up only to his cage, which was movable. He was set on protecting the lady, and so charged Miss Tina Heinrich, dragging his cage behind him. Providentially, his cage was caught on a chair, so he could not reach or bite Miss Tina Heinrich. We were then able to give her and her brother medical attention, and she was so sincerely grateful. What really stood out to me in my mind from doing outreach that day was the sincere gratitude and gratefulness of all 15 patients we met that day. The experience gave me practical knowledge of what the medical field might be like. It was a great opportunity.
So when we went out to do medical outreach, I was pretty excited, but my excitement turned to fear when we saw some big dogs at one of the houses, but they weren't tied up to anything. So we went to knock on the door, and I saw that they were walking towards us, and so I was like, God, just keep us safe. And the dogs just stopped moving, and so we were able to go and knock on the door. Unfortunately, we were rejected, but I was just like, wow, that's an immediate answer to prayer.
Thank you. Okay, Abigail? I'm just going to talk a little bit here about the medical. We can see how important the prayer is, right, with some of the dogs, but that shouldn't deter you from going to Saipan at all. Anyway, it was neat for me as an adult on the trip to watch the kids react to the outreach that they did and to hear their stories and their excitement, and they would be practicing how to take the blood sugar and how to do the blood pressure. And they had their scrubs on, so it was exciting for us to see these kids in action.
A medical career is something I have always considered, and doing medical outreach on this trip was very positive. My eyes were open to see how many people were in need of medical help. Some of the people were very sick, but were not seeking medical attention. Some of them said they didn't want medication because those made them feel worse, but they want lasting solutions. This gave me the greater desire to teach good health habits and share with them the love of God.
Thank you so much. We're going to have something special in our program now. I'm going to ask, before we go into the Saipan school projects, we have Kira and Esvain, and they're going to come up here. I'm going to ask them not to stand behind this because I want everybody to see them well. And they have something to share also that was special, unexpected, and unique on the trip. So I'm going to ask them to come up here and share a little bit. We don't have slides for this, but we'll leave it to your imagination.
Medical outreach was not only for the community, but also for us, because Kira, Maya, and I got a very bad case of pink eye. Mrs. O and Miss Heinrich took care of us and the others. They helped us do hydrotherapy took us to the eye doctor, gave us eye drops 4 times a day, and made sure we slept well and ate.
We are so thankful for our medical missionaries that took care of us while we were away from our parents.
Thank you, girls. Yes, Tina and Gina were so faithful. There was a little epidemic that we had in our group of pink eye, and so we all became a little paranoid about who might get it and what might happen the next day. But I think what happened there, the blessing was that people got to bond together. They had lots of times to talk and to share, and there's always a blessing in a trial, right? And I know the moms here and dads were praying, and nobody has pink eye right now. But I will, whenever I go on a mission trip, I'm going to wash my hands a lot and try to avoid any of that. Okay, now we have the group that's going to come up here. We have Wyatt, Kai, and Trevane, and they're all going to be sharing about the Saipan school projects that we did, because that was one of our main projects during the day, was to help do school improvement projects at the Saipan SDA school. So first we have Kai, and then Trevane, and then Wyatt.
One of the things that we helped do on the trip was paint. The things that we painted were the playground and around the fence. We painted the playground yellow and the fence green because those were the school colors.
One of the projects we did was cleaning out a locker area at the school. We sprayed the lockers down to get all the dust out, and we organized all the sports equipment. It's rewarding to clean up a space that needs improvement and make it look better.
So the last assignment we were due is cleaning up. So there's a lot of rooms that were very unorganized and messy. So we went there, and one of the rooms was the science room, and the classroom was full of variety of so many different materials. So we put them all on the outside stage first, and then sorted everything and put them back in the classroom. So now the teachers can view their material easily and teach their classes better. The next room that we cleaned up was the library, and it was a mess, having books, papers, and like other random items scattered throughout the room. So what we first did was starting to organize the books and putting them into categories such as fiction, nonfiction, Bible-related, and educational. Then those books were placed onto the shelves and other materials so that they would be like organized. Once we finished, the library was a lot cleaner, so with no random books and materials just laying around on the ground. And many youth helped us during this endeavor, and it was a good difference that we made. And these jobs are not only fun when you do them yourself, so it was great to have everyone there.
Thank you so much. The school staff was really encouraged. There was a new principal there, and there was a young man named Travis. He was in one of the pictures, and so he would direct the kids each day, and they were so thankful, because when you go into a classroom and everything's unorganized, or you have these big projects, it's really overwhelming. But when the kids did it together, they had fun, and so the school there was really encouraged. It was such a blessing. One of the highlights, of course, that we had was the evangelism and the nightly meetings. The kids had prepared for VBS for that, and Pastor Mar is not here tonight, but he had a very wonderful series. I'll let the kids tell about it, but he had really wonderful sermons each night, and his wife was a big support. So I am going to call on Joshua Jung to come up here and talk about the health talks.
Hello and good evening. My name is Joshua Jung, and I'll be talking about the nightly meetings. Compelling health talks were a part of every nightly meetings. Our Guam providers who presented on our trip were Dr. Miyagi, Dr. Lee, and Dr. O. The health talk was effective because it encouraged everyone to be healthier, including me. One of the health talks was about blue zones by Dr. Miyagi, and he talked about how people can live more than 100 years. I learned a lot of things from the health talks, like caffeine can increase heart rate, anxiety, and other side effects. After the health talks, there will be a sermon by Pastor Mar, which my fellow youth will talk about later. I mention this because his sermons had health titles, but he brought out deep spiritual lessons from his sermons. They were related to health. I was motivated each night to be more healthy so I can connect with God and be close to him. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we'll have Charlotte and Abigail. They're going to talk about VBS, Vacation Bible School.
I will be talking about the Vacation Bible School program. VBS was held nightly at the Cagman Church. We started off with some songs, and then the kids would go to the craft tables and have some fun with Abigail, which she'll talk more about. We ended the VBS with a puppet show. I think that many of us enjoyed doing those and having fun with different voices and actions. So yeah. By the end of when we started the VBS, we were a bit discouraged because only 3 kids came. But by the end of the week, we had over 10. Seeing the children have fun while learning more about Jesus was a great experience.
I was in charge of VBS crafts. Prior to the trip, some of us prepared the crafts so we were ready for the program in Saipan. I liked the crafts because it was so fun, and to minister to the children was even better. They like being creative and making new things each night. The kids also loved working with one another and making friends. Trevane was great with this. He was personable and friendly with the kids at VBS. He talked to them and cracked some jokes. He made the kids feel special, happy, and a part of what they were doing.
Jasmine. Jasmine is going to talk about the evangelistic talks and some of the results from that.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Lee, and I will be sharing with you my testimony of the Saipan evangelism and baptism. As you already know, Charlotte and Abigail just talked about the VBS program, and right after, we had the evangelistic talks by Pastor Mar, and his series was called Complete Restoration. On our first day, no one showed up except for the few church members that were already there. And but after praying and praying, a couple days went by. The rows started to fill up with more people. I recognized some of the people that we visited during our medical visits at some of the houses, and I was able to invite them, and they came. I sang with Charlotte O before the sermon started, and while we sang, I would look around the room, and I would see all the faces, and they would all be smiling and singing with us. And I felt so touched that I was able to sing praises and be able to touch their hearts. It made me feel so moved. As the days passed, the church was filled with so many people. On Wednesday, Pastor Mar made his altar call, and it took a little time, but after a while, the 4 women slowly stood up. And it really touched my heart that these women chose to give their hearts to God. I felt like tearing up at the time, but I didn't cry. So on Saturday, we had our church service, and at the end of the sermon, Pastor Mar gave a call to anyone who wanted to give their lives to Jesus. And slowly, people started to go up. The same 4 women that went up during the altar call went up, and 10 others also made their decision to follow Jesus. The Holy Spirit definitely moved them all. At this time, I started crying. I felt so moved that I was able to have this experience, and I was able to touch hearts, and I'm so glad that I was able to go on this mission trip.
Thank you for sharing. And now we have Samuel Jung. He's going to talk about just a reflection on the trip and how he was blessed.
Hello. After coming back to Guam, I thought about the mission trip a lot. The time went by so fast. Even though I could have used my spring break time to be at home, relaxing, watching videos, and hanging out with my friends, I chose to go on the Saipan mission trip. And I'm very glad that I made that choice because it was more rewarding to be on the trip serving others than staying home. And I was with my friends serving others, which made it more meaningful and fun. When we went out to the community in Cagman and we saw people in great need appreciate our medical help, it brought joy and satisfaction, the kind of happiness you can't find when you are not in service. Personally, I drew closer to God because our daily routine started and ended with worship. In the morning, we had devotional time led by students, and in the evening, we were blessed with a powerful sermon by Pastor Mar each night. These spiritual highlights combined with the fact that we fasted from our phones and computers helped us draw closer to God. I look forward to our next mission trip. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the youth for being willing to share. It's a little bit scary to get up in front of people. And we're going to close tonight after we have our last song, which will be Seek You First. So I'm going to ask if Ken Lee and Mr. Vatema would come up. We're going to have Samuel go ahead and close us off with prayer. So we're going to sing, and then he'll have closing prayer. So I'm going to ask the youth to come back up here, and we'll go ahead and sing together. If everybody could stand, let's sing Seek Ye First.
Let's bow our heads. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much for today, and thank you so much that we can gather here to worship you and talk about the mission trip. Thank you that we can all have this wonderful experience, and thank you that, and please continue to bless us, and please let us learn more about you, and please keep us safe. In Jesus' name, pray. Amen.
I want to thank you for coming. Those of you who are here for the communion practice, we're going to be practicing up here, but